This is a warning for the listeners today. I'm interviewing a female professional dominatrix, and we're going to talk about some pretty spicy topics surrounding BDSM, sex, and power dynamics. So if you have children around, this is not the episode for you. And if you're triggered by controversial social topics, this is also not the episode for you. So you've been warned. We're going to talk about CNC. We're going to talk about domination and submission. If these are topics that you find offensive, do not listen to this episode. See you inside. This whole episode is going to be about domination, submission, and power exchange. A good male dom psychologically doms you before there's ever any physical contact.
Yes.
I see this a lot. Really high-performing women who have more like masculine traits. They need really, really masculine men. I don't think that being a dom is for the majority of men. I just don't think they have the social acuity or the emotional maturity to do this stuff.
Most people don't have the baseline communication
Yeah,
skills.
this too, yeah. Slowly worked my way up to being a dom. You were just like, boom, day one, pissing on people. So I'm super excited to introduce my friend Bia. She's a professional dominatrix.
Yes,
And
goddess
this whole
Bia.
goddess Bia, yeah. This whole episode is going to be about domination, submission, and power exchange, and whatever the fuck else we want to talk about.
I love
to be
that.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, do you want to tell everyone like where you're from originally, or like your situation, how you like moved to?
How I came to DS and this being my profession.
Yeah.
So my background is in mental health and substance abuse treatment. At 24, I entered working into treatment facilities, and I always knew I was called into some type of healing work, and I always thought I was going to be a nurse. But ended up working in treatment. And so running treatment facilities, I quickly, I am a dom at heart, so I quickly moved into...
Again, you'd be a great ER nurse.
Thank you. Yeah. I moved into management pretty quickly. I ended up at 25, no idea what I was doing, ended up owning and running a sober living for women. So I've always just worked in that field. And then I ran what's called an intensive outpatient program out in Atlanta after I left the sober living. And then I moved out here from Atlanta a little over 3 years ago to open up a facility for teenagers, actually, struggling with mental health and substance use.
And how long did you live in Atlanta?
My whole life. So born and raised for the beginning part of my life in San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
And then moved out after Northridge earthquake. So I was 4. And then I lived in Atlanta the remainder of that time until 3 years ago.
How's the kink scene in Atlanta?
I mean, there's some kinky people in Atlanta.
Okay.
There are. Here's the thing, right? I moved out to California for a reason. Atlanta is still the South. It's come a long way. The city of Atlanta is a world of its own. And I mean, there's trapeze out there. There's some bigger sex clubs, and there's a scene out there.
So there's a scene out there. Okay.
Yeah, but it's kind of in the city of Atlanta. As soon as you get so I'm from Kennesaw, Georgia. And as soon as you get 30 minutes outside of the city and then further, it starts to get a little weird.
Yeah. So I grew up in California, but I moved to Missouri when I was 13.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get it.
Yeah. So and I moved out to a cow town. There was no kink scene. No one was gay, right?
Yeah.
So, but I worked in the emergency department for a little while, and you would have these corn-fed conservative country boys come in with abdominal pain.
They've had things stuck up their ass.
Yeah, you'd do an x-ray, and this was back in the day when you take the fucking x-ray and you put it up on a light, right? It's wasn't digital yet.
Yeah.
So you put the shit up on a light, and there's just a giant dildo in their abdomen, shoved up their ass. So there was no community, nobody talked about it, but then you would find out through the grapevine that some dude was getting pegged, and it was a huge deal.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere,
right?
yeah. Even if people aren't talking about it, it's everywhere.
And it's unfortunate that people aren't talking about it, right? And some of the ones that are talking about it, the loudest against it, are those that are actually just deeply repressed. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that are usually calling me.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Right? We get those people. I think it's sad because it speaks on society in general, and the belief systems that are kind of at play to keep these parts of ourselves silenced. Yeah, I mean, it was an easy transition for me. I doing like lifestyle first and then was in like online domination. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of trash and it is not true DS on, sites like X or some of these other places, right? It's which is sad because it's just a lack of education and understanding of what we're actually doing.
So wait, you got into lifestyle first?
Lifestyle first.
That was your introduction into the kink scene, totally?
Yeah, well, I've always been curious.
Yeah, you just jumped straight in.
Yeah, I've always been curious. I've always I've been different.
Yeah.
I've known that. I've always kind of owned the way that I walk and move through the world. I believe in fierce authenticity.
Yeah.
And so played around a little lifestyle, but then really went online. Of course, I kind of attracted the real subs online.
You immediately knew you were a dom.
Yeah. What I loved about it, right, is like kind of this intersection of healing, the work I was doing in mental health. And women, as we know, are incredibly oppressed in our sexuality, in the way that we move through the world, and our power. And yet, like, when I came into female domination, it was like, it was a healing journey.
I've heard of this, kink therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly healing modality, right? I think it's one of the most powerful ways that we can actually integrate, transmute, alchemize our shadow.
So I don't know very much about kink therapy, but what I have heard about it is you'll have somebody that's had a traumatic experience. Let's say it's rape or physical abuse or something like that, and it was a negative experience for them. And then kink therapy is basically repeating that experience, but now it's a positive experience. Yes. So it reassociates a positive experience, either like love or orgasm or something, with the negative experience they had, and it like rewires it. Is that, am I getting this right?
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on it, right? I think what happens is there's a large majority of women that have experienced sexual assault.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like 33% of all women, or it's some wild ass number.
I would venture to say it's far higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the people that admit it, right?
That's reported, right? Yeah, and so many of us have experienced sexual assault, right? We've experienced like a complete taking of our power and our essence in that way. And so when you can heal these things through kink you are in control, right? You have to have somebody, of course, that's a skilled practitioner.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
that is deeply trusted, right? But it's like you can walk back through these scenes from a place of power, even going through CNC, right? Consensual non-consent, right? Going through rape scenes, going through these things, and it heals the nervous system because if you know you're safe and you're actually in control at any moment, you can stop this. Yeah. How empowering is it to actually be able to like have your voice in those moments?
I think this is actually something that people that aren't familiar with power exchange relationships, they get this wrong.
Yeah.
They think that the dominant person is the one that's in control, when it's actually the submissive person, generally.
Yes. Yeah. It's all based in consent, communication, and deep, deep trust and respect. And the sub is ultimately in control. That's why you have the boundaries, right? That's why properly done, you set it up from the beginning where you have your boundaries, you have your limits, you have your what we call soft limits, which are like, as of right now, I don't feel like I'm going to be interested in that. It doesn't seem like it's something that I want to investigate. And when I'm in that space, you've dropped me in, we might be able to push these boundaries. Then you have your hard limits, which are like, these are absolute no's. Yeah. Right? And those are always respected. But the more you can set up from the beginning with really good, thorough communication, what these limits and boundaries are, then that's where the dom can really step in and guide so that you can let go, right? It's all about power and control. Yeah. We deal with deep power and control programming. If you've been through assault, women, that is one thing we try and deeply hold on to is our power and control. Yeah. In whatever ways we can grasp for it. But men too, right? Because men are always like given these ideas and this programming that like you have to be in power, you have to be in control, you have to know what you're doing at all times.
Yeah, like a typical masculine hierarchy. Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of the men that come to me are like exhausted.
I was going to ask you who your typical clientele is.
Yeah. I bring in a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I do have some femme subs that come and see me, which,
It's probably mostly men though, right?
but it's mostly men.
This
It
is
mostly
hilarious.
men.
Yeah.
There's some that are just kind of like, I call them kind of like real subs, like to their core, they are submissive.
Yeah.
Right? And like want to serve. I think men and the masculine in general, the way that oftentimes, and I'm not a man and I don't have the male experience, right? But oftentimes
We don't have to be PC here.
Yeah, are seeking like service and purpose, right?
Oh,
In
I
some
agree.
way.
No, absolutely.
That's like a deeply masculine thing.
Yeah.
And so some people will look at submission as like this emasculating thing, and we play with things like that when it comes to feminization, and we play with the taboo, right? But reality is you're tapping into something that is deeply masculine,
Yeah.
which is service to the divine feminine.
There's a really interesting conversation that's happening kind of online right now where it's like kind of the Jordan Petersons and the Andrew Tates and stuff are talking about like what it really means to be a man, how to like define masculinity, stuff like that. And like I don't know, some of the conversations are not very like nuanced.
Yeah.
I feel like the idea that some men have of like what it means to be masculine is like stuck in the 1940s, where men are supposed to get a job, be like really stoic and not really emotionally connect with people. If you cry, you're a pussy, stuff like that. Like it's a very weird conversation about what masculinity like means. So yeah, I hope that we can like get into that a little bit because I think
Absolutely.
it's a very unmatured perspective. I think it's a very like
Unevolved.
old.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's incredibly unevolved, and it's the thing that's hurting men,
Yeah.
which is also in turn hurting women,
No, I agree with this.
right?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, embodied masculinity and embodied femininity is incredibly important, and that means we get to embody the full spectrum of who we are.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I love is being able to be that space for men to come and surrender some, right? To come tap into that service, to challenge some of those programs that we've all been given.
No, it's funny. Like I love that you're saying like integrate like the masculine and feminine because I feel like right now people are trying to separate them. And men are really fucking struggling right now, even with their male relationships. I forget what the stats are, but a lot of men have maybe no close friends, and it's like super fucking sad. Like they don't know how to emotionally connect with people, and it's really bizarre.
Yeah.
So
well, and that's what we're playing with in DS, right? Is these like deep areas of vulnerability. And it is incredibly emotional and it is incredibly vulnerable, and you're opening places of yourself up that are not opened up. Yeah, and being able to have a safe space to really like challenge these things that really hold us down and bind us, which are all of these ideas of what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
Oftentimes for the men that I find at my feet. You know,
it's fun. Some of the content, man, I have to be so careful when I talk about power dynamics or power exchange stuff. There's no way that I could post a video of like me putting my foot on like a woman's face. That I would get me too'd out of the fucking country.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really glad that I have a female dominatrix here because it's just more. It's easier to digest when it comes from you. Because some of your content, I think, to people, especially who are unfamiliar with this stuff, is pretty racy. But it's coming from a woman, so it's like, okay, that's a little bit easier for me to handle.
Yeah. Well, and again, so I do a femdom mentorship for women as well. And it's about women stepping into their power.
You teach women how to be more dominant. Yeah.
Yeah, how to be doms. And it's looking at all of the ways in which we don't step into our power, right? All of the ways in which we kind of shrink, all of the ways in which like we get scared to do so. But to be able to do it from this place, and you're so right, because, and it's so sad, right? Because it's like I'm a woman who went through an intense sexual assault.
Yeah.
Of 4 men who, they were boys at the time. I was a girl at the time. And I thought they were some of my closest friends, right? Like we all grew up together in the neighborhood. And one came in, and 2 more. He called in 2 more. I slipped away, got my phone to call in for help. And what did he do but come and join? And this is not abnormal, where women have called on to another man or male body for help. And it's like this pack mentality happens, and they join in on the assault, right? And so I deeply, of course, resonate with the Me Too movement and with women finding their voice. And I may catch slack for this, but I think where we would be more empowered as women is in finding our voice, not blaming men. I've sat with men who have had and seen the impact of what Me Too did. And the intention behind the Me Too movement is beautiful.
Yeah.
And women have to have their voice. There are men out there that have deeply hurt us in ways that are unacceptable. And there is a lot of ways in which we give away our power and we haven't spoken. And that's where stepping in as a female dom was incredibly powerful for me, is because it's like seeing, oh no, we are worthy of being worshipped, right? We do hold a lot of power in our femininity, in our sexuality, in our sensuality, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that's deeply revered by the masculine in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot more men that want to be domed. There's more men that want that than we think there are. I think that men still probably lead dominant. Like, I think men have a predilection to be more in like a leadership or dominant role.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of guys out there that want to be domed. So
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I think so, and I don't know these statistics by heart. And
I've looked them up. They change every fucking year, and it depends on who's doing the study and stuff. They're very complicated.
Yeah, but at least it was like, the last I looked, it was like at least 60 or 70% of men have thought about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, it was like the amount that have actually allowed themselves to
It's probably much less.
adventure
Yeah.
is way less.
But I wonder if that's just because, like you said, in the South, right, or like in Cowtown, Missouri, this is not something you could like discuss with your friends, right? You can't be like, yo, like my girlfriend pegged me, and then you get a high five, right? A lot of guys are going to be like, you're gay, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get
Yeah.
like heckled for it.
Yes.
So
Yeah, which I think is one of the most courageous things you can do is actually like allow yourself to submit to the power of a fucking powerful woman.
yeah,
Right? And to explore parts of yourself that aren't maybe accepted
yeah,
by most, right?
Yeah.
Like, what a fucking courageous, manly thing for you to do, to actually allow yourself to explore those things,
yeah. I agree.
you know?
Take me back to like your first time doming somebody. What's your first experience like really doming someone?
Somebody actually reached out to me online years ago, and I went and just like met with this human, and we're sitting over coffee. And I think because of just the way that I show up and the way that I'm like so shamelessly authentic in who I am, it gives others the permission to do that as well.
Okay.
Right?
So you guys hadn't discussed this prior?
No.
Okay.
This is the other thing I've found is like doms and subs find each other. It's like we can sniff it out naturally even.
Yeah.
Somebody may not even know they have it in them, right? And I can call it out of them. And I think he may not have, I didn't know yet, but he almost was able to call it out of me some. And next thing you know, he's like, yeah, I've always had this like thing about being pissed on. So yes, I started with piss play.
I feel like you go straight to the most extreme, right? It took me, like I dipped my toe in with like a little bit of, not even lifestyle, just a little bit of kink. And then I like slowly worked my way up to being a dom. You were just like, boom, day one, pissing on people.
That's literally what happened, which is so my fucking vibe. It is so like how I move through the world is in extremes. And that's exactly what happened. And he's like, would you piss on me? You know? And he was like, this is the thing. He was so incredibly grateful that I didn't like be like, you fucking freak and get up.
No, that's a bold ass question, right? Because if you say no, you fucking weirdo, like, damn, that's a hard rejection.
Incredibly vulnerable, right? And I think like there was just this safety established because we had just been, I don't do surface level most of the time.
Yeah, you just go,
right? Like,
you just go right for the heart, right for the jugular.
And be with people, right? And so we were talking about some deep things, and so I think it allowed him, like he knew, like, oh, okay, I think this human is safe and non-judgmental, right? And so he's like, I've always had this thing about like piss play, and he's like, would you like piss on me? He's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like,
well, let me sweeten the deal. Yeah.
I'm like, well, in that case, you know what I mean? I think I might be willing to explore this. And so that's what happened is we like had this agreement. I would go over, he like worked from home, and I would go over and he would pay me money and I would piss on him from this like dominant place. And I remember the first time I was like, I don't know if I can like pee. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's like a weird thing
For sure.
to fucking do with someone, right? But it opened this up in me. And again, I saw his reverence for the feminine, and I saw like how incredibly respectful he was. And this was a man that was like working in management in an international.
I love this. I hear these stories sometimes where
Yeah.
it's like these high-powered CEOs end up being like, they like financial domination, or they like a lot of like public degradation or private degradation, depending
Yes.
on their, how famous they are.
Yes, well, you're having to walk around in power all the time, taking care of a shit ton of people,
Yeah.
taking care of a lot of things. Again, the male body experience, and I understand this more and more the more I listen to men, is like the things that you guys carry on a regular basis that we as women, and I'm using man and woman very generally, right?
Yeah, sure.
But that we don't necessarily carry, and we've had to take on some, right? But so to be able to come and like let go of all of that, and I think that's what a lot of men are hungry for, is like, can somebody please for just a fucking minute be in control?
Yeah.
Can somebody else please lead?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that. I can.
Please just let go for a minute and know that I'm like safe. Nothing's going to happen for this fucking hour. And I can like, or 2 hours or however long the scene is. And I can like just release it a little bit,
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and those are the subs that I really enjoy, is the ones that are, well, I'm all about power exchange, right? So I like that you have some power to exchange. It makes it a little more fun for me,
Yeah.
right? Is when you move through the world from a place of power and your own power, and then you're coming and choosing to surrender it to me. I think the exchange gets to be so much more vast then,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So that's a lot of the men that I do dominate are the ones that move through the world in high levels of power and then come to me and give it all away.
So how long? So you've been a dom now for how long?
So I've been doing this. I was introduced to it in my early 20s, stepped away. I ended up actually marrying a woman. We were vanilla monogamous for a long time.
Really? Mm-hmm. Vanilla, no power exchange relationship?
There was no power exchange relationship at all whatsoever.
Interesting.
She was an incredibly strong woman. I mean, I love all people. I think she could have been in any body, and she would have been my human at that time and journey in my life. But she was really the only one that could like stand up to me. I was like dating men and running circles around them. You know what I mean? Dragging them along. And they were good men. There was nothing wrong with these relationships. They weren't like toxic. They weren't unhealthy, right? But they like couldn't stand up to my innate.
I see this a lot. Really high performing women who have more like masculine traits. They need really, really masculine men. And if they can't get there, if they're not on that level, it's really hard to like respect them over the length of the relationship.
Yes.
And that oftentimes leads to it ending.
Well, yeah, because then what are we doing as women is like out of our own wounding, we emasculate men, right? Men deeply need like a sense of respect, not in power dynamics, right? There's like, we're playing with these things. But yeah, so then if a woman doesn't respect you, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to fucking work, right? She's not going to feel safe. He's not going to be able to lead because he's not going to be able to feel empowered.
Yeah.
So that's what was happening. And I ended up actually in a relationship with a woman for a long time because she was the only one that could like stand toe to toe with me. And she's fucking fierce and she's still a dear friend of mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was why. And so we were in a vanilla relationship, monogamous, for many years. And I was like, started feeling the call back to female domination. And I'm like doing this research and then I'm like reading it to her, I'm like, babe, like listen to this shit right here,
And she was just not having it?
Well, I didn't even necessarily want to dominate her.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, right? And I was like, I think I'm going to like look into this. And she had always been so supportive. And she was like, I support you.
Yeah. Probably because she wasn't, like, I don't want to dom people who aren't interested in it. Like, I would never.
Again, there's no power exchange.
No, exactly.
Like, right? I want to feel the energy exchange.
Yeah.
The more you drop and submit, the more power I experience,
Yeah.
the more we can push the limits,
Yeah.
the better the experience is.
I think this
if
is
you're not into it, I'm not interested.
This is an amateur dom move, is like guys that try to dom everyone. And a lot of girls are just not into that. And they just think that, well, like, but I'm the man, like I must dom you. And it's only for women that want to be submissive or like feminine or want to do that stuff. That's the only, you can't dom somebody who doesn't want to be dommed.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's going to feel actually really empty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And should probably also feel deeply out of integrity.
Yes.
If that's, you know what I mean? If that's something you're worried about, which you should be. Yeah, and it's not fun to do. So she like totally supported me. She's like, go for it. I went online, and it was when Twitter was Twitter, you know, and I went online and I just started kind of playing around with it and just like was like, oh, well, one, turns out I'm actually really good at this. And two, I really enjoy it, you know?
So you guys worked out this deal. She was like, it's okay if you dom other people. What did you guys have like written rules, like no sexual contact, or like how did you guys? This seems like a very difficult needle to thread if you are in a monogamous vanilla relationship.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about all of it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, she was a straight lesbian, so she had no interest in like any type of sexuality with men at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
She knew I had always dated men, but she also, I think, was comfortable with it because from DS, it was like I very much approached it from this unattainable dom perspective, right? So there was never going to be like, they're not touching me.
Right.
Right? It's all from a place of like, I'm in complete power and control. I love the mental play. A lot of people think DS is incredibly sexual in nature.
Yeah, or like only physical.
Or only physical. What's interesting, especially, and I do think from the male dom perspective that that's more so when there's male doms and female subs. I think it is more sexually founded.
Yeah.
Not always, but it's a way bigger part. Most of the domination I did where there was like sexuality is at play. It's more about the power play, the mental play, you know.
Oh yeah, no, even
control in that way.
Even for good male doms,
Yeah.
it's still mostly psychological. Like a good male dom psychologically doms you before there's ever any physical contact.
Yes, yes. And maybe what I mean is like when there's male doms and female subs, like sex is oftentimes a part of it.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
When there's female doms and male subs, it's actually not so much a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? There is like this tease and denial. I personally love locking cocks in cages because what is more powerful than having your actual cock under my control?
What is this? There's an acronym for this. CBT, cock ball
CBT,
torture.
cock and ball. Some of my favorites. Yeah. Oh, there's nothing better than either. What is a more powerful thing than literally having someone's manhood like in your hands being abused? It's fucking phenomenal. Okay. A lot of female domination, it's about service. You know, we get to play with things like bondage. We get to play with things like chastity. We get to play with things like pain. And sex rarely comes into it.
Yeah.
Now, using my sexuality and sensuality to drive the whole experience, sexual energy is incredibly powerful. So if you can build that up, especially in a man, and play with it, there's a lot of power there.
Yeah, I feel like female doms, a lot of it's like deprivation. You're not fucking these men. It's usually you're depriving them of something, you're tying them up, you're teasing them. It's a very different dynamic than like a male dom.
It's very different. Yeah. Yeah. And you can play with all those things as a male dom too, right? But like I have a sub that is locked in chastity and he rarely gets release. He has to be very, very good.
He has to be a good boy.
So. And when he does get release, I hand him the keys.
Yeah.
Because I'm never touching him in that way. You know what I mean? I hand him the keys. You may go release yourself and you may come back. Right? And so, yeah, it can be very different in that way.
So now that you've been a dom for a while, what's the biggest difference in how you dom people now from when you first started?
Oh, well, I think the whole journey has truly been about And that's what's been so healing for me. It's truly been about stepping into my power, right?
Yeah.
Is in like,
This is a personal development journey for you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Is in when as women, we struggle with setting boundaries.
Yeah.
We struggle with asking for things, right? We struggle with like owning our own desires. And so I think, yeah, the most powerful thing has been about like owning that, right?
So now you're more assertive with
Far more assertive, you know.
your subs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is what's so beautiful about Power Exchange too, is it takes a good sub to really be able to, the same way it takes a good dom to really push a sub into submission.
Yeah.
It takes a good sub to really help a dom step into their power.
What makes someone a good sub?
Oh, that's a great question. When a real sub comes with true surrender, it's like there's, again, all these little ways that we want to try and control, especially from the bottom. We call it topping from the bottom, right? I think most people aren't intentionally topping from the bottom. There are some that abuse that and try, right? As a pro dom, there are a ton that come and say, I want a session and I want it to look just like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's somebody out there for you.
Yeah, that's
I'm
not me.
her. Yeah. It's not this goddess, right? But
this was actually a challenge for me too. One of the things that and this is probably going to trigger some people, but one of the reasons why I have to be really careful about how I talk about power exchange is for men that don't have a lot of relationship experience. They don't know how to read women emotionally. And especially with the more hardcore BDSM stuff, you need to know when no doesn't mean no, really. And even worse, when yes doesn't really mean yes.
yes.
And women, especially young women, are not very assertive sometimes. And they'll say yes just to impress you. Or
Say yes because it's what they think you want.
Exactly.
And it is not a yes for them. And that's what I was talking about earlier.
That's really tough.
And finding their voice, right?
Yeah.
It's like we have got to be empowered to actually speak our truth.
Yeah.
And to like know our boundaries, know our desires, and then speak to them.
Yeah.
Which is why it can be incredibly empowering to do and participate in DS from any perspective.
Yeah.
Right? But like it is not for the undeveloped, underdeveloped, unevolved. You have to
This is a high EQ skill for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to have the ability to like really, one, know yourself.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know myself, how the hell am I supposed to communicate with you?
Yeah.
Right? Or somebody in the picture has to have that strong center.
Yeah.
To be able to like feel those things out, those nuances, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. How do you, because consent is it's a whole complicated thing. How do you manage consent, especially with some of the stuff that you're doing? I mean, you might have a ball in somebody's mouth. They may not even be able to speak, right? So how do you manage, because if you don't do consent properly, it can be really lame, right? You don't want to be the person that's saying, is this okay?
Are you
sure this is okay?
That'll ruin
okay
the
with this?
scene.
That ruins the scene, right? But you have to be able to check in, especially with CNC, or you will get yourself into a lot of trouble, especially as a man.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you handle consent?
Yeah. So that's where the conversations on the front end are incredibly important.
Okay.
So I personally have an application process that clicks. You can click like I have a long list of kinks, right?
Yeah.
Like what are your top interests?
Okay.
And then I have the soft limits and then I have the hard limits, right? And so in order to serve me at all, you have to fill out this application.
So you have a written contract about what this person's boundaries explicitly are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then I also ask about mental health and trauma history.
Yep.
Right?
Smart.
Physical history.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the full picture. Because again, it's not fun if you don't have this foundation and you're going in the whole time. Are you okay? Are you okay? Is this okay? And you're having to read.
Yeah.
Right? You also, I mean, CNC, breath play, sometimes like intense pain are more advanced level.
Yeah, this is not
skills.
something that you just like jump into like day one as a dom.
No.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of times where, men will approach and I think they're so like hungry for an experience and they're like, I want to go all the way and I want to go there right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, good thing I'm in charge here because we're not going to. right? Some things have to be built over time.
Yeah.
You can't just jump into a full-blown CNC experience or jump into binding somebody, gagging somebody, taking all of their senses when you have zero experience with them.
This is what, because it takes me, I have to know somebody and how
Yes.
they respond emotionally to stuff before I ever do anything like that.
Yes.
So I was so curious how you handle this with somebody that you're not like intimately familiar with, or you're not used to like reading them emotionally.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, thankfully, as a woman, I have pretty strong intuition. And
Yeah.
it's something that I've like really honed. So I can tell from the beginning.
Women, it's annoying, but women have higher emotional acuity than men.
Yes.
I think just at baseline.
Yes.
It takes a long time for men to like develop that. And it takes a lot of relationship practice that a lot of men just don't have right now. So I don't think that being a dom is for the majority of men. I just don't think they have the
No.
social acuity or the emotional maturity to do this stuff.
Most people don't have the baseline communication
Yeah,
skills.
this too, yeah.
You know what I mean? That takes, because you're having hard conversations.
Yeah.
Right? You're truly speaking to like your desires, and then you're talking about like, you have to be able to trust the sub to say they're hitting the line, they're
Yeah.
not okay, right? Yes, on top of that, it's incredibly helpful for me. And I have some subs where it's like, they will go there, and then especially they're in subspace, they're not going to call it.
Yeah.
They're just not.
No one
right?
wants to ruin the fun,
I
right?
want
And they
to
don't
be
want
a-
to speak up and ruin the scene.
100, especially when they're there and they want to please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't want to disappoint you,
Yeah.
right? But like first and foremost, it's fundamental that I have to be able to trust you, that you're going to communicate with me.
Yeah.
And that's on you as a sub to do that,
Yeah.
right? However, if I'm the one leading the scene, there's a sub where I know and he can take a ton of pain. He's a masochist. I'm a sadist. I love it.
Perfect.
Right?
Match made in heaven.
Exactly. And I'll kind of like watch him melt away, right? And it's like, yeah, there's no tapping in right now for him to say like, I'll do check-ins oftentimes too, like 1 through 10, where are you at?
Okay, yeah. Do you ever
know
play
what
the
I mean?
stoplight game?
Yeah, red, yellow, green. You know,
Yeah.
is incredibly helpful. If you get a yellow, it's like, all right, it's like we're not stopping the scene, but I know we're like getting there.
Yeah.
So it's time to kind of like, you can play with it a little bit, move away, back up the intensity, and then maybe even go back there, because that's where it gets really fun too, is coming up against the yellow and backing off.
Do you want to explain? Because I think a lot of people don't know what the stoplight game is, and it's useful in all sorts of situations, and it kind of makes consent sexier without making you look like a bitch.
Thank you.
So yeah, you want to explain the stoplight game?
Yeah, absolutely.
To our vanilla viewers?
Yes. So we use red, yellow, green, right? It's very simple because we learned this in like, I don't know, elementary school,
Yeah.
right? So green is like, whatever you're doing, I like it, keep it coming.
Yeah.
Yellow is like, we're getting somewhere, we're coming up against.
Close to a boundary.
Yes. We're
Yeah.
coming up against where like physically I can't maintain this
Yeah.
level that we're at. Mentally or emotionally, something's coming up. I think more so, again, for women when there's been trauma, but there's been a lot of men that have been traumatized too, or something comes up, right? So panic can arise, fear can arise. These are all things that are a lot of fun to play with. But ultimately, it's like, I'm getting close to a line. We got to back off because I don't want to stop the scene, right? So yellow is like the most important because it means we're coming up against something and I'm hitting a threshold.
Yeah.
Right? And so to be able to say yellow in a scene, again, means you can continue in the scene. Everybody gets to continue to have fun
Yeah.
and play with these things.
But you need to be careful
but
now.
you've got to be
Extra
careful. And
Yeah.
whatever you were doing at that time and point is like, it gives you also more information for that scene, for future scenes of wherever that threshold is. And as humans, we can push our thresholds too, right? So it's like, ooh, that was a place we kind of got to where it's like a warning and could be a little fun. How do we play with it? How do we back it up a little bit and play with it there? Because it means that's where we want to be, right?
Yeah.
And then a red is a full stop.
Full stop.
That means the scene stops
Yeah.
where you are. So it's the same thing as what people have heard as safe words, right?
Yeah.
Which pineapple is one that like forever has.
That's
been thrown
everyone's.
around.
That's
It's like
everyone's safe
right?
word. Yeah.
And a safe word you want to have where it's like, this is not a word that's going to come. It's not a no, right? People will throw around no's, stop, please stop in scenes. That happens all the time.
But in BDSM, those are almost never,
that
they
does
don't
not
mean anything almost.
That's actually part of the fun of the play.
Yeah,
is right.
exactly.
No, please stop. No more, goddess. I can't take any more.
Yeah.
And it's like,
They're
if I
into
don't
it.
hear a yellow or a red,
You just keep going.
safe word,
Yeah.
or if somebody's gagged, we have like little hand symbols or things that you can do too.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, well, we're right where we want to be then. You know what I mean? No, please stop. Okay, I'll give you some more.
This is just a PSA for any guys out there. This is only for BDSM. If you're at the bar and a girl says no, that probably means no. So yeah.
I will find you.
If anytime I'm talking, because I will have conversations with guys sometimes about just normal relationship stuff. And anytime a guy is like confused about, like, oh, like this girl said no, but I wasn't sure if it was a real no or something like that, I know immediately, like this person, I'm not going to have a discussion about power dynamic relationships with, like, they're not ready for that. If they can't, if they don't get it yet.
Respect and honor a no means no.
Yeah.
If she says no, it is no. It's not up for interpretation.
Well, sorry. I mean, like,
in a regular.
Sometimes there's like a playful no, and sometimes there's a no. And if guys don't know the difference between that in like a normal relationship scenario, like they're not ready for like BDSM stuff.
No, you are not ready, and you should not be participating. Yeah. And guess what? Again, you get to ask for clarity.
Yeah.
Right? There are ways where you can finesse as well in DS to kind of check in and see, right? It's like, yeah, if you're hearing a lot of no's, if there's like high emotional intensity, if there's these things happening, that's where a lot of healing and shifts and changes can occur.
Yeah.
To be integrated later from a DS scene. And there's a way to do it with finesse. But yeah, this is not for just an average person.
No, it's not. Yeah. This is advanced relationship stuff.
This is something that has to be like deeply honored and respected. Yeah.
Do you get backlash right now from people on the internet about what you do?
I've been incredibly lucky. Well, again, I don't surround myself with a bunch of normal people.
No, but your content is public, right?
Yeah.
So do you ever get backlash? I mean, maybe not in conversation. Look, we're in Orange County in California, so this is probably one of the most socially and sexually liberal like states or areas, like maybe in the world. Let me ask you this. What do you say to people that misinterpret relationships like this as abusive or coercive? Because I run into this sometimes.
Well, one, I want to identify and respect the fact that there are some.
For sure.
So there's that, right? Two, we can look at like media, even look at 50 Shades. That's actually an incredibly unhealthy, toxic, coercive, abusive relationship.
That book was not written by somebody who's experienced with power exchange.
So like these are the things that people are seeing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, one, I would say, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why you think so, right? Yeah. And I think it's like up to those of us that are educated, that do know what's really going on here, to like share. Not everybody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
Those judgments are their own. They're not mine. You can hold them if you would like to. I think that's where most people go wrong with most things, is like, how committed to that judgment or that belief system are you?
Do you ever get like hate comments or like guys saying weird shit on your Instagram?
Oh, I mean, I've had a guy on FET who called himself a Dom.
FET life.
Yes. Who called himself a Dom and ended up in my DMs. His page said he was like in his 60s. And this motherfucker had the audacity to come into my DMs and say, whenever you're ready to take your place and know that your real purpose is to serve men. Yeah. You're welcome.
Doming over text message. It's the dumbest way to try to dom people. Anytime I see a guy doing that, I know he's a fake dom. That's fake dom behavior.
First of all, it's very clear I'm a dominant woman.
Yeah,
right?
Course. Yeah.
Second of all, there's no consent there or communication, everything that we just discussed. Yeah. So you just, without consent, came into my fucking DMs where it's very clear I'm a dominant woman.
Yeah.
And with this bullshit, right? Now, what he said wasn't necessarily, it falls within DS play.
Of course, but there was no relationship built.
There was no relationship,
Yeah.
there was no consent,
No
there was
consent.
no communication.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Fake dom.
What people don't understand is that when done right and done well, these things are done with incredible communication
Yeah.
and thought and intention and attention. And so, I think it's about the people that are playing with these things.
Yeah.
Right. And it's about their level of maturity. It's about their level of intuition. It's about their level of emotional intelligence, their communication skills,
Yeah.
the trust, the respect. That has to be at the foundation of any of this that we're doing. It is abusive if somebody just walks around throwing their dominance onto somebody else.
Who didn't ask for it. Yeah.
Who didn't ask for it and who didn't agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's just called physical abuse.
That's called that is abuse.
Yeah.
You know, and those things do happen, which is why I understand, and it sucks because it does give us a bad rap.
Yeah, no, I understand why. I think there are a lot of abusive men, and I think when people see, even in a power exchange relationship where this is an agreement and they're being a dominant as an act of service to their submissive female partner, they don't, it's very difficult to tell the difference between these two relationships unless you see how they treat each other and know that they have discussed this stuff.
This is an agreement.
Yeah, that it's an agreement, and that the submissive is actually the one that's really in control. At the end of the day, this is for her, right? It's not for the dominant just to have fun or to have sex the way he wants to have sex. So I can see why people would mix those up, but.
Well, and look, I see, because I do participate in online domination, right? And that is what's missing in like what I call like Twitter doms.
Yeah.
Right? Is like, they have no understanding. They've gone online somewhere. They've figured out like, oh, there's people out there that are deeply craving this. So this looks like an easy way for me to make money, right? And I started in financial domination, right? But with like a very strong internal moral compass for ethics and integrity.
Can you explain FinDoms a little bit? Because this is relatively new to me too. So.
Yeah. So FinDom is financial domination.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of found its mainstream online.
Yeah.
Which isn't actually financial domination, right?
Okay.
True financial domination is what is money, but power in a lot of ways, right? So it's actually an incredibly powerful way to play with power exchange.
Yeah.
Is with finances, right? You are literally making me wealthier by the moment when I am gaining your money and you are surrendering it to me.
And like how, can you explain like, what is it, a cash cow or a pay pig? Like,
pay pig.
Explain the relationship here, because I think people are going to be, I think a lot of people don't even know this exists.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's fun. Again, a lot of people are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But it should also always still be done through consent and communication.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
What's wrong is out there's now a lot of people that are playing with what they're calling financial domination, and they're
just taking advantage of men financially.
They're actually taking advantage of men and then leaving them in really horrible situations.
Yeah.
And then not caring that they're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So financial domination should be done through limits, consent, communication, right? When done well.
All the same guardrails that you would have for physical domination.
For physical domination, right? So when done well, it's like, no, at the end of the day, yes, do I want you to sacrifice financially for me? Of course. Do I want you to surrender your power through your finances for me? Of course.
Yeah.
This can be done through debt contracts. This can be done through what we call drains, right? Which
What's
is
a
like
drain?
It can be a video session, a video chat. It can be just through text, right?
Okay.
Where you're literally dominating them by telling them to give me what's mine, give me what I deserve.
And they're just sending like cash to your bank account. Yeah.
And they're sending money, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually one of my favorite kinks because I truly love power exchange, and I love the feeling of power that comes when you are giving me your money.
That's a very authentic power exchange. When somebody is sending money to,
It's palpable, right? It's like very much the same as when somebody's tied up on a cross and you're inflicting pain. There's ways to do it where some men will absolutely completely hand over their finances to you to manage. Again, that has to be done through a lot of trust. It's also very different than
So like you have the passwords to their bank account.
accounts.
You have
Maybe
full
you
access.
have their
You could
credit
withdraw.
card.
Yeah.
Right. However, to do that and to do that well, you have to be financially literate yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have control of your own finances? Because if you don't, you shouldn't be controlling somebody else's. That's for damn sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is also very different than I'm paying you for a session, right? So as a pro dom, I do pro dom work.
Yeah.
And this is, I pay you your tribute fee, which is a donation. That's required.
Charitable donation.
Yeah, that's required. I'm paying you
Well,
for a
it
seat.
might be tithing soon. You know what I mean?
That's right. When I start my church.
That's right.
Will not be devoted. I know. But that's not financial domination.
Yeah.
Right. That's a donation for an experience. Financial domination is the exchange of the money is actually the basis of the power exchange itself.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of different ways to do that.
Do you have favorite scenes that you put on? Or are they all sort of based on your clientele and what you think would best serve them?
Yeah.
I'm assuming impact play is
I am a
almost
sadist.
always okay. Yeah.
I am a sadist, so I do love impact play. I think it also is a powerful way to move energy.
What is a sadist?
This is also really deeply confused a lot of times. People think like, oh, I'm a sadist, which means I just like inflicting pain.
Yeah.
I do.
True.
However, it's for a purpose. So in DS, it's either for training, right? It's we're moving energy. I am gaining deep pleasure from doing so, but I don't like inflicting pain on people that don't in some way gain something
Yeah.
from pain being inflicted.
Yeah, of course.
That is abusive.
Well, this is why your screening process is so in-depth, right? Because you need to make sure that what they want fits what you prefer to give, right?
Yes. Or at least I'm not doing something that is a complete no for them or their system.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Now, you might not want it, but you kind of want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you do. You know, something in you doesn't, but something in you
Do you
does.
always give aftercare after, like, is it always appropriate for you to give aftercare for all of your clients? Or is that more for your female clients?
It's everybody.
Okay.
Aftercare is incredibly important.
Do you want to explain? Because I didn't even know what aftercare was until maybe like 2 years ago. Do you want to just briefly go over what aftercare is?
Yeah.
And
so
why it's important?
aftercare is incredibly important. There's something that's called sub-drop, right? So we're releasing neurochemicals in the brain through this experience.
I've never even heard of what sub-drop is.
Oh, yeah, this is incredibly important, right? So we're releasing neurochemicals in the brain. We're working with things like shame, degradation, humiliation, right? So you go into subspace,
Yeah.
which is somewhat of a high because of the neurochemicals in the brain being released through these things that we're playing with. If there's not a reconnection of safety, touch, sometimes it's different for everybody. Now you ask, like, do you do aftercare with everybody? I discuss aftercare with everybody on the front end.
Yeah.
I expect people to speak for themselves. They are responsible for sharing what they need, right? But sometimes it's touch. It's like, yeah, if you just went through a serious sensory deprivation bondage scene, then you're still a human being and you've got to be reconnected to your humanity,
Yeah.
right? And to the way you move through the world.
The scene is kind of this like fantasy setup. Maybe it's like somewhat scripted, or at least you've sort of planned what's going to happen, what you're going to do to this person.
Yes.
You kind of feel it out, but it's sort of a fantasy thing. And then the aftercare is sort of integrating them back into reality.
Back into reality. Yeah. It's let's like bring those neurochemicals back to homeostasis. If not, people can go into like severe depression, anxiousness, right? It's like you can maybe start to believe the things that were just happening in this session, the things that were maybe said, the things that were done, right?
Yeah.
Left without the other part of the human experience, which is like connection. You know what I mean? Like love, kindness, grace, compassion, those types of things. If you leave somebody out there for too long, it can be a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, and like sometimes, especially if you're a pretty hard dom or a sadist, you can do some really mean things and say some horrible things to people.
Yes.
But then at the end of it, you're like, hey, you're loved. I didn't really, you don't say I don't mean those things, but like
Yeah.
you kind of show them that this is the end of the scene. This was an act, that sort of thing.
This was the space for
You're
it.
really not a piece of shit like I told you for the last 30 minutes. Yeah, I really don't want to murder you and bury you up to your neck. And
Yes.
yeah, all the horrible
And
things you say to them.
Here's the thing, right? Is like those that like I have an ongoing relationship with, where that's
Yeah.
the foundation is our DS relationship, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's literally I have a sub, I will beat the shit out of him,
Yeah,
right? And it's enough to bring him back to center for when I fucking give him some like head rubs
yeah,
and tell him he did so well and he's such a good boy. And that in itself is that reconnection. And like, I'm a good boy, right? Well, fuck yeah. I'm like, you just took that fucking pain so well, right? And you just let them know, like, you're a good boy. You did so good for me. And that's enough to like reset them. You give them some pet rubs and you send them on their way. Some too, it's part of the relationship. Some don't need that much aftercare. They can kind of like regulate within themselves, or they have the container within themselves to truly be able to like hold that as they move through the world.
yeah.
So that's different for everybody too.
Is it different how you dom people who are clientele versus how you dom people in like a long-term committed relationship or whatever, a more intimate
dynamic,
relationship?
like
yeah,
an
a
ongoing
non-professional, yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly different, right? Because again, I know these people less. And so that's where it's like a scene as compared to, it's almost the difference between like a one night stand and a relationship, right?
Yeah.
You've got a one night stand, or maybe you've got a friend with benefits. So you guys kind of know each other better in the bedroom, but you're not like in an ongoing thing. And then there's relationships,
Yeah.
right? There's like the same spectrum, I think, when you're dealing with DS too.
Is there any adjustments, like specific adjustments that you make for doming like a long-term partner?
Well, you're playing with like you have more information,
Yeah.
right? So it's like
You can push their boundaries a lot more because you
push
know
their
them better.
boundaries a lot
Yeah.
more. You can use it for, I mean, I have subs where it's like I know what they're working on in their day-to-day life. And so I can use my position and my guidance, my
Yeah.
leadership, my domination to push them to actually be better men,
Yeah.
right? And to work on growing in these areas through our dynamic,
Yeah.
right? You can't necessarily do that in just one scene.
Yeah.
So
with someone you don't know and you don't know what their goals and hopes and dreams are.
100%. Yeah. So those are only really types of things that you use, or you only use that dynamic and that play in that way
Yeah.
when you have a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
The other is more for release. What are we trying to achieve in this scene, in this period of time, in this space that we get to meet in together?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had girls give me their bank account information as well. Not to, I'm not into financial domination, but just to like make sure they're not spending money on like dumb shit. So like,
Which is
like
a huge
life
thing for,
dom. Yeah.
That's lifestyle stuff,
Yeah.
right? Is like, if you are in the position of guidance and leadership,
Yeah.
then like that's a huge way to be able to do that and to support somebody is by, let me look at your finances. Let me tell you what you can and can't be spending money on, or put you on a budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Put
Yeah.
you on a schedule, put you in some structure. It's like there are lifestyle doms, lifestyle subs that I have, and he like struggles with time management. I will get a list of his tasks together, and I use my role in his life as dom to literally tell him what he's going to be accomplishing.
Do you ever use the obedience app?
No, but I've heard about it.
It's fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, then
It's
that's gonna
awesome.
happen.
I'll show it to you.
Because then you get to do you can implement rewards and punishments,
And they have
right?
to check them off. And
See?
some of them you can like set up photo verification. So if you're like, I want you to do this,
And then I
they have
need
to send you a
see.
photo of it and you approve.
Good.
No,
I'm
it's
like looking at Raven
it's
over
good.
here, who's here. I'm like, Raven, you
it
know
is
this shit.
really for like long term like lifestyle dom. It's amazing.
No,
Yeah.
that's huge, right? Because that's where you get to really play in dynamic with rewards and punishments.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
It gives you a weekly.
we're gonna get these things done.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you get a little reward for some. It's like for him, it's a reward for him to get a beating.
Yeah.
right? His
It's punishment.
You're fucking welcome. Yeah. You know, his punishments are usually more like corner time, lines, journaling. I'm having him like look at these things, integration.
Wait. I'm really curious about this because it's hard to find ways to actually punish them, right? If you actually want to punish them, it's really difficult because like they all like spankings. Like it's almost like anything you do is not really a punishment. How do you figure out what's punishment and what's actually punishment? Like what are some of the tools you use for this?
Well, again, it's kind of conversation and it's getting to know who you're working with, right?
Yeah.
So for him, like I would not punish him by putting him up on the cross and beating him.
Right, he would love it, right?
He would love it.
He would misbehave just to get that.
Just to get that.
Yeah, exactly.
And you will get in situations like that where like now they're trying you and kind of testing you a little bit and whatever, right? Bratting, things like that.
Yeah.
Some people like to play with that. I'm like, don't you fucking dare.
Do you not like brat taming or bratty behavior?
No. I like obedience.
Okay.
You know, I'm like, you're going to be here. It's more fun. Now, when it comes to women, fem subs, I'll deal with brats because they're a little more fun.
Yeah.
Right? Men, I'm like, don't you fucking dare put it to me. You are here to serve and obey. Do not fuck with me.
So for women then, how do you deal with brats? Like how do you brat tame?
Yeah, I mean, there's also different types of like bratting. Some brat
Let's hear it.
out of like manipulation.
Okay.
Which is not necessarily welcome here, right?
Okay.
Some brat because
How do you know?
like,
how do you know when they're bratting out of manipulation? Because this is really this is something that's like hard to tell, even for me. Like right now, it's hard to tell sometimes. There's like a very fine line between bratting because there's actually a relationship problem, or bratting because they want attention, or being manipulative. It's really tough to tell sometimes.
it's very incredibly nuanced, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
DS can be very difficult to maintain lifestyle when you're actually in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with real, true relationship things. So it's like, yeah, is she bratting because she's actually trying to like top from the bottom?
Yeah.
Right? Which at that point, it's like usually if you can't figure it out, it's like, is this kind of like fun? Is it because you want to get a little like, you want to get punished a little bit?
Yeah,
You know
or is this a real relationship problem we need to talk about?
and if you don't know, then what I would suggest is like sitting them down. What's going on here? Because I'm about to put you over my knee. I might do that now actually, and then we can revisit this conversation. You know what I mean? But if it's something that's kind of persistent, it's like, they're all messages that are trying to tell you something. But if it's like persistent, also bratting's supposed to be fun. If it's crossing over to the line where it's like, this is not fun, or it's borderline like actually disrespectful, or it's borderline like really pushing up on your boundaries or the respect for your position as a dom, then that's got to be handled.
I've had a couple of relationships where girls would slap me in public and like I was the dom. And if they really wanted punishment, they'd slap me in public. Usually it's when they were drinking. And so this would be like in a bar, right?
And so they just slap the shit out of you?
I mean, not too fucking hard. But hard enough to be like, it's not a tap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was always interesting. I've like almost gotten in fights because like they would slap me and then I would like slap them back. And now there's like dudes at a bar
like,
watching you hit a girl in the fucking face. They don't understand what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the agreement, like you guys know this.
I was pretty new to it and I didn't realize that it was going to get us into like fights. So yeah, now I have to be like, we can't hit each other in public because like it looks too bad, right? It's just the optics. There's no way to make those optics look good in public. It just...
Well, here's the thing about consent too that I think a lot of people forget is like, if there are strangers around, you have not consented to my kinky ass shit going on over
That's
here.
a really good point, actually. This comes up a lot with like public stuff. Like people like to fuck in public. You can't just whip your dick out in public. Like there's everybody else. Like they didn't say they want to be part of your scene, right?
That's actually a serious breach of consent. Yeah, they did not open themselves up to that. So it's like, and now don't get me wrong, I will put a man on his knees in a parking lot somewhere, right? In Vegas, I fucking dropped him and collared him in the middle of the casino, right? We're in Vegas, first of all, so...
I feel like that's fine.
You take settings, But now, if it's like I'm inflicting serious pain on you, that's going to affect people.
And now people have to be like, do I need to call the police, or like, is this a game?
Yeah, you can't, it's inappropriate to get too sexual, to get too, again, like, I'll walk you down the street on your collar and leash, right?
Have you been to Folsom Street?
In the right setting. I love Folsom Street. I love Folsom Street.
I think that was my first time. So Folsom Street Fair, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a BDSM fair in San Francisco. It's on Folsom Street. They shut the whole fucking thing
down. Yep.
And then there's just like vendors. There's people walking around in like dog masks. There's just dudes jerking off on the sidewalk.
Yes.
There'll be people fucking. It's pretty extreme. And I think that's one of the first times that I saw like a 75-year-old couple, right? Like this old lady just naked walking her 75-year-old husband on a leash.
Yes, she was that badass woman. It is
very shocking. The stuff you'll see there will shock you to the core.
But if you're at Folsom Street, you know that that's what you're there for.
Exactly.
Right?
You've consented by showing up.
You've consented by I have pictures from Folsom Street because I had someone walking around and it was like I'm wearing my thigh-high boots and I needed a seat. So, of course, he was my seat. You know what I mean? But now, if you're out at a restaurant in Orange County and there's families or like people, you have to be somewhat aware. Now, Hollywood Boulevard, I will walk a slave on a collar and leash.
Yeah, it's Hollywood.
Down Hollywood Boulevard.
That's acceptable. There's like Batman running around too. It's like not that weird.
It's like, in Vegas, it's like, sure. You just have to be aware because the people around you have not consented to your like super kinky, demented shit.
Yeah.
And you're affecting them.
I feel like too, I think that women are a little bit more insulated from public critique for this kind of stuff. Like, I feel like women can get away with doing some pretty bizarre BDSM stuff in public, whereas men, for good reason, you can't just pull your dick out or hit a girl in public. It doesn't matter if it's your sub and you guys have agreed on it.
No,
like that.
You should not do that.
Yeah.
And I do hope if somebody sees it, they
would say something, right? Because again, I was very young and very new to the scene, and it was all consensual, FYI. But that's what I thought. I was like, well, hold on. If I saw this at a bar, I would intervene.
I would hope so.
And it would be, I think I would probably just go up and see what the fuck was going on. And if it looked like the girl was like, no, like, this is my boyfriend, like, we consented, I would be like, okay, fine, I guess, but like, what the fuck?
It still would be hard to believe. It would still be hard to believe,
because
right?
I'm sure you see that stuff, and the woman's like, no, like, he didn't mean it, right?
We're fine.
I made him mad, it's my fault, like, all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, this is just like, it was a...
Yeah. It was a good lesson.
It was a good lesson. It was a good
lesson,
yeah. Do you have any advice for not just men, but anybody that wants to get more into being a dom or into power dynamics? Like, where's a good place for them to start, so they don't make the mistakes that I've made?
100% do your research. Like, we are in the world of technology and information is available. So do your research, gain the education, find a mentor, go to kink events, right? Find somebody that has been a dom for an extended period of time. They will mentor you. Good people in the kink scene want to educate people because we know kind of the shit that goes on when you're not educated. Yeah. We know what people think of us in the world regardless. So we don't want more people coming in here giving them a reason to think that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? There are a ton of good books. There are a ton of phenomenal educators. We're in Southern California. We're very, very lucky and blessed, right? So it's like
The Heart of Dominance and The Dominance Playbook, two of the better books on dominance. If anybody wants to. Yep.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's a ton for female domination too. There's a ton of mentorship programs, right? It's like, find yourself a mentor, find a local kink scene, go. It's going to be uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be uncomfortable.
It's going to be uncomfortable because you have to wear a butt plug to go to a kink scene. You have to. It's mandatory. They have
to.
they have a metal detector, but instead of looking for a gun, they look for a butt plug. So
Full X-ray
you have
machine?
to, full
wanna
X-ray
make
machine.
Yeah, you get like sectioned off depending on how big it is. If you've done really well, you get to get in the VIP section.
How committed are you to it?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes. No, we're kidding. No, but there are, especially now, there are a ton of people that want to educate, that want to help. And it's your responsibility. You got to find them. You got to find your community, right? But they're out there. There's a ton of good books. There's a ton of good literature.
Yeah.
So it's like, do your research. Do not go in haphazardly. Do not go in thinking that, like, you also have to come in, which is hard, I think, for a lot of people, right? Coming into the dominant position is you feel like, I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm supposed to always know what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Especially young men. They have a lot of ego around. It's very hard for men to admit that they don't have a lot of sexual aptitude. So, yeah, to come into a scene where there's other older men, that can be kind of weird for them. But it's nice because a lot of these guys the kink scene's awesome. People are super smart. They're experienced with relationships with a wide variety, monogamous, poly, E&M, all that stuff, threesomes, lifestyle, whatever. So yeah, they're actually really interesting people to talk to about relationships just in general.
And most are pretty open.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I feel like you have to be in the kink community.
We want you here with us if you want to explore, right? That's the collective. So the collective is a dungeon space and community that I was leading up, and we're currently looking for a new space. But a lot of the stuff that we did was
We'll post this. We'll post collective in the show notes.
Yeah, was workshops around, right? Like,
this is
for new
awesome.
People,
yeah,
because that's what we saw was missing a lot. Was like, you're going in and it's a kink party and like nobody's maybe really talking to you and you don't know what you're doing, right? It's hard to put yourself out there.
There's a lot of potholes you can step in if you don't know what you're doing.
If you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.